Born in Australia. My mother was born in Italy and grew up in Argentina. She came to Australia, I think, when she was about, in her teens, in her late teens. My dad was born in Adelaide, in the Italian community, which back then, and we're talking in the late 30s, early 40s, was like being in a small part of Italy. Yeah. Studied in Adelaide, University of South Australia.
When did you come over here?
I've been in Sydney now for about 3 years, so I moved back from Europe in about 2007. As a kid, I always used to draw, and I actually never thought of it as a profession. I went through high school and all that, just always interested in art, but never thought that it would be something I'd do for a living. And eventually went into university, studied economics for about a year, failed that miserably, and then realised that I could jump over into industrial design. But I guess it was always something that was there, so I was always very interested in particularly in drawing technical things like cars and planes, and fighter planes was a big thing that I really loved to sort of follow and draw and copy and invent my own. And yeah, so I guess originally the seed was always there, and I never really took it up until I failed at the complete opposite. I guess back then another big influence of mine was sort of animation, so I guess I looked a little bit at sort of Japanese manga design. I was very sort of big into Japan as a culture, as a place, and still am, a place that I visit often. So Milan for me was probably the best experience I had in terms of design. I mean, I met so many designers, and everybody hung out together. I mean, everybody from, Guy, Top of the Tree, people like, James Irvine, Stefano Giovannoni, and all of that. You all meet up at the pub, and I'd just be like a little shit kicker that was helping Jerzy out with an exhibition, and there was that fantastic sort of transcendence of just sort of hanging out. I mean, if that's a phrase, I don't think it is, but
I know, I think some people make a career of hanging out.
Yeah, I certainly gave it a bash, but then, oh, g'day.
Well places to bump into you.
Well places to bump into me. How are you?
I'm well.
I started working with Jerzy probably sort of 2001 or so. I was put in touch with him by a guy I was working for called George Sowden, who was one of the Memphis designers, and that was my first industrial design job. I got a job working for George, and that was a real great opportunity because he had a really interesting take on stuff. And what he said to me straight away is, you got to work with some younger people, you got to meet some younger designers. And so he put me in touch with Jerzy, who happened to actually live pretty much next door to me. And that was an amazing experience working with Jerzy, because just the way he thinks. And
Jerzy's been sometimes described as humorous and sexy and a bit raunchy. Does that appeal to you in your particular design work?
I don't find him sexy. But yeah, look, it's really about working with him. And I suppose I didn't work with him as in work for him as a paid employee. I did for a very short spell at the end there, but it was mainly just sort of finish up at George's studio, head home and head over to Jerzy's, and a lot of it was hanging out and then helping out when sort of exhibitions came through. But yeah, it was a lot about having a laugh, and to coin a phrase, taking the piss a little bit.
Yeah.
And for industrial design, and I see him sort of walking the fine line between art and design, especially now. Back then, it was more industrial design sort of work, and sort of his later work now is really focused towards the scums and the installations and stuff like that. But it was, for an industrial design, he's quite anti-establishment and anti-commercialisation, which is a really interesting take on things. From Milan, went to Paris and worked for Marc's studio in Paris for about 3.5, 4 years, something like that. working for Marc was the definitive sort of experience in my career. It was a very big jump to go from working on these really breakthrough installations with Jerzy and then heading over to Marc and working on some really serious projects. And it was an incredibly productive period as well for me in terms of the amount of projects that actually, came and saw the light of day. It's it was a fantastic experience. Marc's a really great guy to work for because he's just so confident in what he's doing and relaxed about what he's doing, so he never loses his cool. And it was really interesting to work for someone that had such a definitive idea about what he wanted to do. I suppose it's. I mean, I'd have to say that those two guys were probably the biggest influences on me in terms of how I've grown up as a designer. So, I'm of the opinion that when you leave school, you still know nothing, and you don't really start to learn how to apply those skills you learn in university until you're in a sort of work environment and dealing with clients. So my own process is that, probably a bit of a mix of the kind of different things that went on in those two studios. So I tend to put a lot of time into concept, because I think if you get it right at the beginning, then the rest of the process should be a lot easier. I find it really hard actually when we go through concept and everybody's happy with concept and everything's fantastic, and then a spanner gets thrown in the works in terms of, oh, we can't afford to make that, or some kind of technological spanner, and then you've got to sort of go back and revisit. But yeah, often, I like working with other people. I don't like working with 400 other people, but I like, one-on-one. I like, especially when your talents can kind of lie in different areas. Often it'll be that, that my talent might even be just presentation and stuff like that. But oh, wow, hard to say. I mean, in terms of personal pride, it'd have to be like this, the sort of the cocktail shaker set that I did back in, I think, 05, 06, because that was the first kind of project that A, got paid for and B, got exhibited, and I was really proud of that. But I suppose in terms of actual professional pride, it'd have to be the Qantas A380 with Marc Newson. That was such a big project. I mean, I think it took us probably 4 or 5 years all up, and just the amount of things that we were involved in with that job. I mean, every little thing on the plane, not every little thing, but so many aspects within the plane, from the the first class suites down to the economy seat, premium economy seat, business seat, cutlery, and all that sort of stuff, all got encompassed into our brief. And as I've mentioned before, Marc's teams are very small, and there are only a few of us working on it really. And the amount of work that we did, it was real labour of love, essentially, that got us through that. Yeah, that's kind of the direction I've had to go in. I still love doing the industrial design stuff. It's still my real passion, and the furniture stuff as well. So I'm doing many different projects. I feel like I'm doing a little bit of everything at the moment. Kind of like shotgun approach. Yeah. Obviously, you'd have to say anything that Jonathan Ives done. He's done a fantastic job with Apple, and to have a product that is beautiful and maybe a little bit flawed in, you know, apples have their quirks, but to also sell the sort of volume that he's done, he's really kind of fulfilled the industrial designer's dream by being able to sort of, you know, walk that line between, you know, really beautiful, aesthetically beautiful design, functional design, and popular design. So he's kind of like hit all three of those criteria with not just one but a number of products. So pick one of his and that'd be it. Okay.